Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Chase, a limited series running as part of the Shallow End podcast feed. I'm Dave Schwartz, and today's episode is about a card and a parallel that's fairly recent and part of a mainstream set, but I'm willing to wager most collectors have never heard of. Our guest is Ben, known on IG as Big Devers Energy, as in Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox. When I first started putting this series together, and Ben and I started chatting about doing an episode, he sent me a picture of his card. And as I looked at it, I thought, wait, what is this? I knew the card, I knew the set, but I knew nothing of the parallel. So let's let Ben educate us. Let's hear about his chase for a card that, at one point in time, nobody seemed to want, but that now seems like one of the most interesting cards that almost no one knows about. Welcoming in now to The Chase. His name is Ben on Instagram. He goes by Big Devers Energy. Ben, thank you for being here. What is the chase we are talking about?
Thank you for having me on, Dave. The card that we're talking about today is the 2014 Topps Power Players Gold Redemption Xander Bogaerts.
And for those of us who are not familiar with it, with what you know about the card or the set, just give us a little bit of background so we have an idea of what set this is.
Yeah, so in 2014 Topps Series 1 and 2 baseball, they Topps did kind of like a promo where in Series 1 it was a 110 player checklist, in Series 2 it was a 110 player checklist, and they had it called Power Players. I think Series 1 they were about 1 in 12 packs. Series 2 they were 1 in 6 packs, and you basically there's like a code on each one that you could redeem on a website. So it's kind of like the home run challenge, but it much more convoluted, much more difficult to understand. Still don't totally understand it. But basically, for redeeming certain amounts of players, you could get various prizes.
So, in order to get one of these cards, you couldn't just pull it. First, you had to pull it and then redeem it. And now here we are, almost a decade later. And in order to find one of these things, you got to hope that there was someone who took the time to get one of these, and then you have to then track it down.
Yeah. So specifically for the golds, which is what I know the most about, you had to redeem 30 players in Series 1 and 30 in Series 2. They had other prizes, like I think they had an autographed set that you could get if you redeemed like the full checklist, which would have been insane. Um, but yeah, for the golds, it was 30 from each series. And then they had like other prizes too that you could get. I'm not totally sure what the story with those is, but for the golds, it was 30 in each.
Yeah, and there's a history to this, not just in Tops, but going back decades, every now and then they'll have these redemption types of things. I think Pinnacle had them at one point where you had to send in some cards and they punch out certain things and then mail them back to you. So this is not exactly the cards you can go on eBay at night and just find 100 of them sitting there. They're hard to find.
Yeah. There's really not many. I think there's one sitting on eBay right now. It's a Miguel Cabrera checklist. Um,
That's crazy. So
yeah.
before we get into the chase itself, give us a little background on you and your association or your interest in someone like Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, so I didn't really actually start collecting Xander until like kind of the pandemic. I had always loved him as a player. He was, when I was little playing baseball, he was kind of like that young star for Boston. Of course, we had Mookie too. Um, but I remember just like watching him in the 2014 World Series or 2013 World Series, and just like seeing a kid that young who's like really not that much older than you, playing in the World Series. So I didn't really collect him though until the pandemic, which, you know, he left not too much longer after that. But that's really when I started to actually collect his stuff.
Got it. So between you searching for this Xander Bogaerts card, your IG handle has reference to Rafael Devers. You're a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, big Red Sox fan.
Good. So Red Sox fan. How did you first learn about this peculiar card and set?
So I first made a sports card Twitter during the pandemic, I think in 2021. And I met someone, his handle is Baseball Dude 8. He also is a pretty big Red Sox fan, huge Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts collection. And we are just kind of chatting on there, and I want him to show me a lot of his Xander cards. And he has one of them, one of the Power Players golds. So it was a card I had never seen before, and I like to think I know a pretty good amount of his cards. There's not many out there that'd be like, whoa, what's that? So he kind of filled me in on, you know, what the Power Player set was. And yeah, I never really thought I would see another one.
So it was around 21 then when you
Yeah.
were following this guy's Twitter handle or following this
Yeah.
guy on Twitter. And so we're coming up on 3.5, 4 years or so. As we
Yeah.
record this, we're about 5 years since the NBA went dark, right? Since COVID first kind of happened. So you're talking about 3.5 to 4 years of thinking you would never really see this card, but it was always sort of there, right? You always kind of knew it existed. You thought it was cool,
Yeah.
but it was a ghost, right? So
Yeah.
In the meantime, you're collecting other things. You're not just, shutting down your entire collection for this one card. But still, how did you kind of keep your eyes open for it? I'm talking about before it appeared. How would you kind of go about just thinking about it and checking from time to time?
Yeah. So I definitely made eBay filters. I didn't make a whole lot because I didn't think that, I mean, they're so scarcely listed that, you know, I didn't want to go through the rabbit hole of, you know, make like for the short prints, you know, where there's no clear name for them, you know, PSA gives them a name, Topps gives them a name, you know, collectors themselves give them a name. So for these, I made like a couple eBay filters, and then I would occasionally put out on Twitter, like, hey, I'm looking for this card. It was nice because I could use my friend's picture for reference.
Yeah.
But that's really all. I'd ask around occasionally people who collect that kind of stuff. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot that I could really do.
Right. Sure. No, except just sort of think and move on. And every now and then it would
Wait.
cross your mind and wait. Were there ever moments during it where you thought maybe it was going to happen, but then it didn't? Or was it just not there ever?
To be honest, I didn't really think about it a whole lot. It was just one of those cards where if I ever come across it, I'm going to buy it. I'm probably not going to come across it.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't, you know, check my eBay filters, you know, every day or two or whatever. And, you know, I was never really expecting anything to ever pop on there. So, you know, it just wasn't something that was, you know, at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah. And what blows my mind about this, and I promise we're getting, because I really want to hear about the moment when you saw it finally, is just the degree of difficulty of this card. Because it's one that I was telling you before we hit record that before someone I chat with them for this podcast, I'll do some research into what they do. And when we talked about this one, I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. You sent me a picture of it. I think I wrote back, "What is this?" or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
And then it is, and it's not, there are some ghosts that people talk about, right? Like some Randy Moss essential credentials out of 5. Like, you know it exists, but this one is almost like a ghost of a ghost.
Yeah, it's really weird because there's no ex the only explanation I can think of for why they're so rare is that the promo was such a flop that people just didn't do it. And that makes sense because when you look at like was it Cardboard Connection, that kind of stuff, like it's kind of convoluted like what you had to do to get these. And I mean, if they put something out like this now, like I'm sure there's some people who would do it, but it's kind of a lot of work, especially with, the pack odds on getting the base cards that you have to redeem. Like it's just kind of ridiculous.
It
Um,
has me thinking a little bit about the Taco Fractor from 2 years ago.
yeah,
Except the Taco Fractor came in the pack. You didn't have to send away for it, right?
yeah,
Yeah. It almost
yeah,
looks like a. It almost looks. This looks like a gold refractor in a way, doesn't it? Can you describe what the
yeah,
card looks like?
yeah. It looks the best way for me to put is kind of like the gold foil, how they have the in flagship tops. They have the silver and the gold foils. Um, it looks really similar. The shine on them is very similar to that, but then it has the actual look of almost a gold refractor. So it's kind of weird. There's not a lot of cards out there that really look like it's kind of like a hybrid between one of those foils and like a retrofractor
Like
almost
almost
with
like
the paper back.
or like the '01 Topps Chrome Gold Retrofractors, right? That were only in
Yeah,
series two. Yeah.
yeah. So they're kind of it's kind of like that. But phenomenal shine. I think it's one of the better looking cards Topps has ever produced. It's a shame that there's so few of them, but um,
Right. It makes me wonder if they're sitting in a warehouse or what.
yeah, yeah. And it's kind of weird. Most of the ones that have surfaced are high serial numbered, so they're high 60s or low 70s. So it's really weird because you would think if they're distributing them, they would go in like some kind of chronological order, but it almost looks like it's the reverse. Like I think mine's 75 out of 75. Um, and it's funny actually, Xander's not even on the checklist. And some of the other ones that surfaced also are not on the checklist, like Nolan Arenado is not on the checklist. So it makes no sense.
It doesn't, but I'm fascinated, and I think I know what the next card to go into my save searches are on eBay at this point. All right, so let's get to it now. When did this card, your Xander 75 out of 75 that is now yours, when did this enter your orbit?
Um, so almost exactly a year ago, I actually got this card. I was just looking through my purchase history. I don't buy a crazy amount of cards, so I can go through my purchase history pretty quick. And I actually got it on March 1st of last year. And it's a really crazy story. I remember I was at the movies with my girlfriend checking my save searches before the movie started, when they're telling you to like get off your phone. And I saw that it had popped up on auction. And the seller had a handful of these. I want to say there were like 5 or 6 that he had running on auction. No other really significant players. I think I didn't even recognize some of them actually. But so it popped up for auction, and they also had best offer enabled. And like an idiot, I placed a bid, which took away my ability to make an offer. So I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, I'm really interested in this card. I was kind of dumb that I placed a bid. I tried to avoid asking people like what I can pay them for a card when they have best offer. I know that's, people have mixed feelings on that, but generally it is best to just give people a price. But I was like, hey, what do you think on this? Because there's nothing we can go off of. There's no real sales history for any of them. And there's not really like parallel you can compare it to. Maybe a gold refractor, but I don't think it would quite have the staying power of that.
Mm-hmm.
But so he got back to me. Uh, he was pretty reasonable about it. I think he just wanted like 75 or 80 bucks for it. So I was like, that's great. But then we had the issue that now the auction was running and I couldn't make an offer.
Yeah.
So what I actually did was I went on Twitter and I messaged my friend Baseball Dude 8 because he already has one. So I'm like, who better to help me out with this? So I actually had him help me bid the card up to 75 so the seller could end the auction with me in the lead so I could get the card. And all of this was going on like, well, I can't even remember what movie we went to watch. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be on my phone during this entire movie.
Are you still dating?
Yeah.
No. All right. It worked. It worked out.
Yeah. But it was just like such a weird, I've never had like an experience purchasing a card like that where I had to go get someone to bid the card to the point where the auction could be ended.
And only your friend on Twitter would get it, right? Like people around you, like
Yeah.
family, other friends who are not in the hobby, they wouldn't get it. But
Yeah.
certainly,
They
and
would be like,
what a full circle moment too that it went back to him to help you bid for it.
Yeah. And because usually, not that I think anyone's gonna like come in and get a card, but you don't want to go around necessarily advertise the cards that you're bidding on or trying to buy, and especially, not that I would say it's a super desirable card, but most Xander collectors know you can't actually complete his rookie rainbow without this card.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of difficult ones in 2014 with kind of the first edition out of 10. His acetate out of 10 has still never surfaced. So if anyone happens to find one of those, I would be a buyer.
Yeah. Oh, so I didn't realize. So the image is the same as what was in the base set. It's just you had to send
Yeah.
away. Okay.
Yep. So I guess technically you do need it to complete his flagship rainbow.
That's great. That's great.
So
so as we start then to wind down here, what was it like then when you paid what you worked it out with the seller, you paid the amount
yeah.
and made the seller happy and you were happy, and it finally arrived. What did it look like in hand once you got it out of the package and got to look at the shine in person?
At first, like I didn't really even like believe that I had the card because it was just like so unexpected. Just the whole sequence of things, kind of like stressful going through that whole fiasco. But yeah, I immediately turned all the lights in the house, where I was on, so I could get a full look of the shine. And left it on display for a couple days before I kind of tucked it away. But yeah, it's really like a unique shine that these cards have. I've never really seen any flagship card that's quite like that. It's almost kind of like the 2012 foils that they had, like the emerald foils. 2014, like they had those red foils. It's like
Red
a
hot
similar
foil.
shine to that, but just no pattern, just all color.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Ben, thank you for introducing us to this card that so many of us probably didn't know existed. This is a great story. And if anybody out there knows the whereabouts of a Xander Acetate 2014 rookie card, you can find him at Big Devers Energy. Ben, thank you for the story and congrats on the card.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.